Hi, everybody. This is Terry Bruce at Fundly Support, and today we're talking about dashboard reports. Now, dashboard reports are interesting because they're not actually a type of report. I would more categorize them as an aggregator of reports, of existing reports, plus charts and text and images. And what I mean by that is that a dashboard report allows you to view multiple reports at once on one screen. So sort of in the way that you have a dashboard inside your CRM where you have a whole bunch of different charts and data elements. You've got some data fields up here at the top, plus these charts that are all displayed together on one screen. You can create reports that mimic this. Now, I've been asked, can those dashboard reports push to your dashboard, to your CRM dashboard, and be displayed here? And the answer is no. We're talking about two separate things. We're still talking about a report that will appear in the custom reports area, and that's the only place you're going to be able to access that dashboard. But in terms of what is a dashboard report, you can think of it as something similar to your dashboard screen. So from the main menu, we're going to go to custom reports, and I'm going to show you a dashboard report so you understand what we're talking about. Make sure we're all on the same page, and I have a demo report set up already. Now, the one thing to keep in mind, I'm going to come to my custom reports here, and I'm going to grab my dashboard report. Now, you will be able to tell which of your reports are dashboards because each type of report has its own little icon. And a dashboard report is these four little circles. And so I can see in the smaller icon, it looks kind of like a clover leaf to me, but you'll be able to see with that kind of like little four circles or clover leaf that this is a dashboard report. So you'll be able to easily tell that just from the icon. With a dashboard report, you can edit it. If it's a custom report, if it's a default report, you can copy it to your custom report so that you could edit it. You can run them, and we're going to talk about running them. They are interactive. You can interact with them on the fly. You can rename it, I can copy or clone it, and I can delete it. You will notice with dashboard reports, the one thing you cannot do with most other types of reports, including express views and advanced reports, is you cannot schedule it. You can't schedule it to run and email itself to you. And the reason for that is a dashboard is a composite of several different reports. So there's sort of no easy way for a dashboard to run the 5 or 10 or however many different reports make it up, run all those separate components, and then email each of those separate components to you. And it's still not going to come as a dashboard. It would come as 5 separate reports. So basically, you just need to schedule those 5 separate reports each individually and then have it emailed to you. There's no way for those to be run in Excel or PDF and then composited in some way. That's why you can't schedule those. Now I'm going to go ahead and run this one so you can see it. When it comes to dashboard reports, building one is actually super easy. And you guys are going to see this is going to be a very short video because it's actually pretty quick and easy to build a dashboard because you're pulling in other existing reports. So the hard part of a dashboard is building all the individual pieces first. And then once you have all the individual pieces, putting it together is actually super cinchy. Now my reports have some prompt for value filters, so it's asking me to put those filter options in. And you're going to notice that this report, this dashboard that we're pulling together is going to be for donations. So my example here for you guys today is imagine you are the director of fundraising or one of the fundraisers for your nonprofit. And it's, annual fundraising time. And there's probably a lot of different things that you might want to look at to keep track of your fundraising progress to date, right? So for this goal, for this example, I am looking at donations that have been made to my general fund. We're going to say for the example of my Monte Cristo Art Center here, that my general fund are all my unrestricted donations. And I am looking at only cash donations. I'm not looking at any in-kind donations. And I have excluded voided transactions. So really what I'm looking at here is realistically the money I've raised in unrestricted donations, calendar date 2017, so year to date. And I might want to know, how much am I trying to raise? So here's my goal, and this is actually a text box. I just typed this in. So here's my goal of how much I want to raise. I probably want to know how much I've raised to date, and this is total donations, and this is number of donors. And you can see I'm raised about a little over $2,800, and I'm trying to raise $60,000 by the end of the year. So as a fundraiser, I'm not doing so hot right now. I may want to know how my fundraising compares to last year and previous years. And so I have a chart here that compares all of my previous years. So here's my 2017 fundraising. Last year, I raised about 60,000, just shy. That's probably how I came up with this goal. And 2 years ago, I raised about 35,000. So last 2 years I did good. This year, not doing so hot. I may want to be able to look at my breakdown of my donations by program or campaign. In this case, I'm looking at it by source. So this may be a report that I run regularly, and I look at the breakdown of how my donations are coming in through my various delivery channels. I might use a report like this because maybe I want to check the impact of a particular appeal. So maybe in May, I did a appeal by mail. Maybe I sent out some letters end of April or sometime in May. And now I can see whether or not people were responding to those letters, because I can see there's an uptick this month of donations made by mail. So I know that's working well. And if I've had, online, or I might have a category for like Facebook. If I did a Facebook appeal 1 month and I saw an uptick, then I'd be able to see that. So this might be a report as a fundraising director that I might run regularly. And certainly, and especially if my donations are down, then I may want to run my LIBUNT report, my last year but not this year. So these are donors who donated last year but have not donated yet this year, because this is going to be probably my key prospecting list. These are people I'm going to contact and say, hey, it's time to donate, and we haven't heard from you, and can we count on you this year? So these might be a variety of different reports, and each one of these is a separate report that I, as a director of fundraising, might run. With a dashboard, as you can see, I can pull all of that information together in one screen or on one report. So that's what a dashboard is. You'll notice that these are a bit interactive. I can click on this, and there's actually a find button. I can search within a report. So for instance, in my LIBUNT, I might want to be able to search for a particular name to get their contact information. I might have some additional information here that had like their phone number, email address, and I might want to be able to call them up. But if this is a really long report, then I might want to be able to search on it. I can refresh each of these individual reports through the refresh button. I can also refresh the entire dashboard by clicking the refresh at the top of the screen, so that if I know we're having a particularly busy day data entry wise, and I've got a bunch of staff who are doing data entry, and I want the most up-to-date information, I could refresh one individual report or the entire dashboard. Now you're going to see, as we get into building this dashboard, there is a setting where you can set an automatic refresh, where this will refresh at constant intervals, every 10 seconds, every 240 seconds, so every 4 minutes or whatever. So you can actually set this to automatically refresh itself to show the latest data, especially if you know that people are doing data entry and these numbers are changing. You can also export these individual reports. Using the export function, I could export any one of these to my normal formats. I can do that to PDF, rich text document, which will open it in Word, to Excel, and to CSV, which is basically Excel, except with all the formatting stripped out. So I can export each of these individual items as well. Now I also can apply interactive filters to a dashboard that will apply to each of the charts. So I could, if I have already, when I built these reports, only am pulling my general fund donations, but I could, for instance, apply a filter if I was showing all my donations, I could apply a filter for fund so that all of these would dynamically update and only show information given to a particular fund, for instance. Or I could use this filter to edit the dates and say, only show me the donations that came in May, right? And then all of these items would then apply that same filter across the board. These also, while you've run the dashboard, you're in the interactive HTML viewer. So as with all other types of reports, well, with advanced reports, express reports, and these dashboards and crosstabs, you do have the interactive HTML viewer. So you can right click and open up the interactive HTML viewer where you can filter on the fly, filter the report on the fly based on where you right click and then what you select, and then you can apply formatting or filter right here dynamically. So all of these are dynamic as well in that way. So how do you build a dashboard? How do you get one of these awesome sausage things that are pretty cool and really helpful and a huge time saver instead of having to run, you know, a bunch of different reports and then have them spread out across your desk and trying to synthesize the information across reports just sort of in your brain with these separate reports. You can have everything right here together. To build one, we're going to start with the same button we use to start all new reports, which is the Create New Report button, the plus in the upper left here. We're going to come down, and the dashboard is in this separate category called Assemble, because again, it's not its own report. You're actually not writing a report. You're assembling it. You're building it from building blocks, and those building blocks are other reports or other pieces of information, such as images, even web pages. You can embed web pages, etc. So we're going to click New Dashboard. It's going to open up the dashboard editor. Now I'm actually just going to minimize this navigation pane so we have a little more room, a little less distraction here. And basically, when you're working in creating a dashboard, you've got the canvas area and you've got your toolbox. And these are the two most important things. This is your dashboard area. Now, the important thing to remember when you're working with a dashboard, there's a couple of things. You cannot include an Express View report as a building block of a dashboard. You can do Express reports, advanced reports, crosstab reports, but you cannot include Express View. Express View reports do not work. And Express View is different than an Express report. I know that's confusing terminology. That's Exago's language. It is what it is, but they're two different types of reports. So Express report, yes. Express View report, no. The other thing is, as you're building this, it's actually going to give you a dynamic preview of your report. And sometimes it can be easy to forget that you're in design view and think that you're actually looking at your live data. So just keep that in mind, that as you're building this, you are seeing a preview. And if you've got this Run Dashboard button, you are only in preview. You actually have not run or executed this report yet. To add components to your dashboard, you're going to drag these different tools into the canvas area. So from left to right, you can add an existing report. You can add a visualization, which is a chart. And there's actually two ways to add charts to a dashboard, and I'm going to show you both. You can add a text field or text box. You can add an image. The thing to remember about images is that you cannot resize them from within the dashboard. So the image is going to pull the entire image file, which may be quite large, the dimensions of it. And if you need to resize that, you actually will have to open that image in some kind of photo imaging program like Paint or Editor or whatnot, and crop it and resize it or resize it first and save it with the dimensions you want, and then embed it in your dashboard. So do keep that in mind, and I'll show you that in a minute. And a URL, so you can embed a web page. Keep in mind that not all websites allow their web pages to be embedded. There may be restrictions on a website, so that if you add the URL and it's not popping up into your report, the owner of the website might block it so that people can't embed it in other websites. And then finally, filters. If you want to add filters, interactive filters that people can use when working with your dashboard. So let's start at the beginning. Let's go ahead and start building by taking an existing report and adding it to our dashboard. So all I'm doing is clicking, and then I'm dragging this onto the canvas area and dropping it wherever I want it to be. Once I do that, it's going to take a second, but it's going to pull up a list of all my reports, and I can now add that report to the dashboard. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my annual fund donations. So one best practice that I do recommend is that if you are creating reports that are specifically going to be used in your dashboard and not really be used for anything else, that you come up with a naming scheme. And that's what I did here. I've got dashboard sub, meaning dashboard sub report, and then the report name. So that all of my reports that are going into my dashboard are grouped together and are easy to find. So I'm not navigating through this giant list of reports trying to find the one that I want. So all I'm going to do is just click on this. Now, if the existing report has filters, has promptable filters, you will find those on this tab. You cannot create or define new filters from within the dashboard. I can define filters that apply to the entire dashboard, but not per report, because you'll notice there's nothing here that says, right, add new filter. I can't filter this underlying report in any way that it's not already filtered. Already on the report is a filter for donation date. But if I wanted to be able to filter my donations, my 2017 general fund donations by program or campaign, I can't add a filter for that here. I'd have to go back to the report, edit it, and add those filters there. Same thing with parameters. They need to be defined in the underlying report. They can't be defined from within the dashboard. My underlying report does not have any parameters defined. And then finally, on options, you can give your report a label or a header. So I could call this, 2017 donations year to date. There's that searching option that I had showed you guys when you run the report. So will there be a find box and people can search the report? You can turn that off if you don't want it. Allow scrolling, meaning that they can scroll through the report, so you can actually make the report windows smaller, and then you can scroll through it, or do you want just like max size and there's no scrolling? If you want the report to automatically refresh, then at set intervals, you can set the interval. If you say 0, then it will never automatically reload. You will have to click that little swirly arrow to manually refresh. And then finally, when you're in edit mode, do you want the report to refresh? And almost never do you want this because while you're trying to edit and you're working on something and you're fiddling with it and then it like refreshes, you have to wait for the page to reload. And you're like, okay, that's taking forever, and especially if you have a high refresh frequency, like every 5 seconds, it's going to be really hard to finish designing and laying things out the way you want them to because you're constantly waiting for the page to reload. So if you check this, then it's only going to refresh when you tell it to. So we're going to say okay and give it a second, and it's going to populate that report into the window here. I'm actually, sorry, I clicked the wrong one. Okay, going back to my report options. I actually going to uncheck that so that you'll get the preview. That's the other thing is, yeah, the automatic refresh also won't show the preview when you're building the report. So then you don't necessarily know if it's working. So you may want to turn the preview on and say, okay, yep, it's working, and then go and turn it off so it's not refreshing and actually running the report when you're in design mode. So there we go. Here's my report, my first one. Now you'll notice there's a toolbar. There's a couple different options here. You'll notice that I can manually resize this, but then you'll notice that this does not fill the entire window. And you cannot overlap design elements inside a dashboard. I could not put another report whose outside edges overlap with this. So there is this handy dandy little function here which says automatically resize the report area to the actual size of the report. If I do that, you'll see it shrinks down, which is a handy dandy little feature for making sure things fit. If I wanted this bigger, I would need to edit the underlying report, and I'd have to adjust the underlying report and make the columns wider. I can't drag this report wider here. It's pulling the dimensions that are set in the underlying report. If I did need to edit this underlying report, I can do that directly from here by clicking the little edit icon. This will open up that underlying report in a separate tab, and where I could go in and I could change this if I wanted to. So for instance, I could make this bigger, and then I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to close it. And then I could refresh this, and now we'll see the bigger size. And it's a little bigger than it was before. And I could have, gone in, I could change the font size, make that bigger if I wanted to and whatnot. If I want to remove this, if after all that I decide I don't want this on my dashboard, I can click the X to get rid of it. So that's adding an existing report. Now, we had a couple other reports on our example. We had a crosstab report. We had that breakdown by donation methodology. And we also had our LIBUNT, which is a default report. And so I'm just going to click and drag to add those. And then I'm going to come in, and I happen to know that because I already had gone and set up my donations by source, so I'm going to select that and click OK. And again, I didn't want to change any of the filters that are on this report or the parameters because I had already set this report up specifically to work with this dashboard. And as you can see, the process of building the dashboard, once you've got the reports in place, pretty quick and easy. So there we go. So now the next option here is to add a new visualization or a chart to your dashboard. If you'd like a chart, there are two ways to add one. The first is directly adding a new chart from within the Canvas area here. So I can click and drag and drop, and I can now create a chart on the fly. I can create a chart and I can create a table, or basically kind of like a crosstab report. I could do either from here. So I had a chart on donations per year, right? It was my total donations grouped by year. So to sort of approximate that, because I'm going to show you a limitation of this method of adding charts in 1 second here. All I have to do is I have to start dragging the fields that I want in this chart into the chart area. So I know I want donation amount because I'm summing up the donation amount. So I'm going to go in to my donation table, and I'm going to get my donation amount, and I'm just clicking and dragging. And you're going to notice as soon as I do this, I now have two options. I can create a chart if I drop this in the top area, or create a tabular report, basically kind of a crosstab, if I drop this in the lower area. I'm going to drop it in the upper area because I'm doing a chart. And then I get this little control box here. So do I want to group by amount, or do I want to do math on the amount? And in this case, I want to sum or total the amount. And I need another field now because I need something to group by, right? I'm totaling donations, but then doing what with that? And I had grouped by year, but to do grouping by year, I need to be able to write a formula. And you'll notice the one thing that I cannot do here is write a formula. I can group and I can sum, and there's no way to put any kind of formula here. So that is one of the limitations of doing a chart in this way. Now I could, for instance, though, group it by my campaign or my program. So if I drag campaign over, also going to drag that, drop that in. And by campaign, I don't want to sum it, I want to group by that. I'm grouping by campaign and then summing the amount, right? And here we go. And now I've got my preview of my chart, and I can see that it is doing that. There are some chart options here, the little gear. When I do that, I can add dynamic filters, and I can give it a name. So I could say 2017 donations by campaign. And again, I can set the refresh rate. Now I can also right click in this chart area, and I can change the type of chart. that I'm getting. I can change the color theme. I can add a legend. I can change my sort order, and in this case, I could do it by data labels, which would be the campaign name, or the values, which means smallest or largest to smallest or smallest to largest in terms of which campaigns, the campaign totals. So do I want to do it by campaign totals or campaign name, basically? So I could do that, might make most sense. And I can convert this to a tabular report, and I can show the categories that were used to create this visualization. This only kind of shows it temporarily to you, the user, and then it doesn't add it to the report. It just pops up a box and says, okay, these were the tables you used. Now I only used one table, so it was telling me that, like, there's no additional tables in this report. Now I also have a button here, right? I could create a new report from the visualization. So I can right click and convert this to a table, or I can keep this as a chart and create a whole new report that will be separate and will be a save as, and it will save a separate custom report that I will be able to access later from this visualization. So that is a quick, easy way that you can write a new report as well, by starting from the chart and then working your way, kind of reverse engineering into a report. Now, the other way that you can add a chart to a, well, actually, I want to show you one other thing about working with these charts. If I make a change, if I don't want this to be donation by campaign anymore, I want to do by program. So I X out my campaign, and I come and drop the program instead, click and drag, and then tell it to group by. It's actually converting this to a table. For some reason, it defaults to converting to a tabular report instead of keeping it as a chart. I don't know why it does that, but then you just right click, change to chart, and it'll change it back to a chart. So that's just one little thing, is when you make, after the initial setup, once you generate the chart, if you make any changes, it's going to convert it to a table, and you could just right click and change it back to a chart. That's just a little Exago bugaboo there. So the section option for adding a chart is to create a report, a regular report, typically probably an advanced report, and adding a chart to that report. When you add a chart to a regular report, to like an advanced report, you have much more control over that chart, including being able to use formulas. And I'm going to actually open up and show you the chart that I had made. Well, actually, I'm going to add it to the report first, and then we'll get into it that way. So I'm going to move this up a little, make myself some nice room here. I'm going to move this one down because we can't have overlapping elements. And now I'm going to add another chart, another report. And I had previously created this report, which was my donations by year. And so I happen to know that that is my dashboard sub annual fund donations chart report, which is, it's a standard or / advanced report that I had already created, in which I hid all of the report elements except for the chart. So the only thing on that report is the chart, and I'll show you that in a second. And then that's how I got this chart added to my dashboard. And again, the reason I did it this way is because I wanted to group by year, but to group by year, I have to use a formula or function, and I can't do that when I'm dynamically creating a chart directly inside the dashboard. So let's go clicking Edit Report Design. That's going to open up the underlying report, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. So here's my advanced report. It is very simple report. The only category I have in here is my donation table. That's the only thing I needed, because I just want donation amount and donation date, basically. On my filters, I'm filtering so that I'm only pulling donations to my general fund, which is what my entire dashboard is about, only my general or unrestricted donations. So everything to my general fund. I don't want voided transactions. I only want transactions that we kept the money. And the gift type is gift. I don't have any in-kind donations. Then on my sorts, this is where I first need to apply the formula. So I took my donation date and I applied the year function, which pulls the year portion out of the date. So I'm sorting by the year of the donation, because to group, which is what I want to do because I want to add an ag sum to the group footer. I want to sum up by year. Therefore, I need to sort by year because I cannot add a grouping on anything I haven't sorted on. So I sort by the year, and then I added a group footer based on that field, the year of the donation date. In that row, I put the year, donation date. So this is the year, so 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. And over here, I've got the ag sum on donation amount. So this is total up the donation amount per year. I've suppressed that. You can tell it's hidden because it's grayed and hatched out. So I've hidden that so it's not showing. And then I wrote a chart. And to add a chart, you just click the cell where you want the chart to appear, and you click the little chart wizard. Now this tutorial is not covering charts. That's a separate tutorial. But basically, that's kind of the steps I took to write this little report. And you'll notice, so everything else is hidden except for the title row here, and then the actual chart. And then all I have to do is pull that report into my dashboard. Ta-da, chart. So that's the two ways to add charts. So then beyond that, text field, drag and drop. This is where I'd put, my 2017 donations goal might be $60,000. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my controls up here, bold, increase the font size. I can change the background color. I could add borders and shading, etc. So I can do whatever I need to, and then, again, drag and drop. You'll notice if I try to put it over there, it's not going to let me. Won't let me put it on top of something else. You'll notice also it's snapping to grid. There is, and when I move this, you'll notice these like grid lines show up so that it helps you to align. So right now it's telling me I'm aligning it with the center of that pie chart versus if I come over here now, I'm aligning it with the center of the column chart on the left of it. So there is a little bit of a design canvas element here too to help you lay this out attractively. Adding the picture, I'll show you guys again. The picture has to already be the correct size, and you're going to see this. So I'm going to click that, come into my pictures, and I've got this whole image here, and you notice it's actually kind of a big image where it's got black and it's got his desk and all the papers, and all you can see is little eyeballs. And then I'm going to pick that and drop it in and see what happens. See, now all you can see is the eyeballs because this picture is larger than this frame. And I can't, I'm double clicking, I'm right clicking. There's no ability to resize an image from inside of here. I could either drag this bigger to keep opening up more of the picture, or I need to first open up the picture separately in an editor, shrink it or crop it or resize it, and then drop it in here if I want to be able to see the entire image. And then adding a URL, pretty straightforward. You're just going to open that and you're going to type in the URL. Include the http://www and then the rest of the address. Again, if nothing populates, that is because the owner of the website has set up their website in such a way that you cannot embed their web pages into another site. That's a security protocol that some people just don't allow that because it can lead to redirects and whatnot. And then finally, to add the filter, you got to click it and drag it, and then it's going to open up the filter window. This is going to tell you the different reports, and you can pick which report you want this filter to apply to. And then on the filter tab, you can actually enter the filter value. So you can filter. So I could say the donations year to date, and then I could filter it by campaign or program or donor name, literally anything I wanted. And then am I going to let people, this is, you're going to pick the field, so I could put in, gift source, and then it'll present a list of all the possible data in that field, so all the possible gift sources. And do I want people to be able to select one item, single choice, multiple items, so I could pick multiple gift source. A range slider, which in this case doesn't make sense. That makes sense only when you have amounts or dates. But a range slider lets you select both ends. So you can set, it's a in between, right? It's between is basically the filter criteria there. So I would be able to say like gift date is between, and then I would set 2 dates. Or single slider only lets you select one end of the range. So it's greater than X in terms of date or an amount. And then do you want this drop down list of choices or the ends of the sliders to be arranged ascending or descending order, basically. And then you can also select the format for the filter. So like date, you can change like, you know, whether the year comes first or the month comes first or whatnot. And so those are the options for creating filters. And you can create multiple filters in here. And then that is pretty much it. That's a dashboard report. You want to make sure you save it. It'll pop up, make you give it a name, pick a folder. So I can call this my 2017 donations dashboard. Have to save it in a folder. You can only save it in your own folder. And then click OK. And you can add a description, as with all reports. So when you are here and you highlight one, the description appears down here in this box down here. So you can add a description to your dashboard so that that will populate. And you do have a few report options here. So you can change the overall canvas background color. And if you want to automatically you prompt the user on the filters on execution, so or do you want them to only be prompted for filter values when they run the filter? And then do you want to show the report bar title? Keep in mind, again, we are still only in preview. We actually need to run it to actually load the actual data and get the most up-to-date data. And do keep in mind, there is also this rounded edges. If you've got some formatting options here, you can turn off these borders if you want, so there's no borders on your things. You can do rounded edges, etc. So there's a few more formatting options available to you as well. And that is it. Dashboards are super awesome, and they will save you a lot of time because you can then, you know, again, have multiple reports collated into one screen and make them interactive, so you don't have to run all those reports separately as separate components and look at them. So hopefully you like this, and it's actually, once you understand how to use the toolbox, just drag and drop, and from there it's pretty easy.